Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane or on Instagram at Trevor Lane NBA. Joining me today is not Keith Smith. It's a rarity, but not Keith Smith. He's taking a well-deserved day off. Instead, we've got Ron Gutterman here joining us. You can find him on Twitter at Ron Gutterman24. Ron, thanks for hopping in here on a Friday.
Yeah, always down to be Keith's stand-in, when he's got to take a day off. We all prioritize vacation time here. We don't want to discourage anyone from taking days off, so glad to step in for him today.
We're calling it a load management day for Keith.
Yeah,
He's taken a page out of the Kawhi playbook, and he's taken a day to rest up and recover. Then we'll have him back on the next show. We do have a decent amount to break down here in the NBA today, and I guess the top story. And I always hate this. I hate when we've got the top story of the day is a negative story, but it's the nature of the beast. Here we are. John Collins out indefinitely with a plantar fascia tear in his right foot. That's painful. You don't want to deal with that kind of an injury. Usually it's a pain management type of thing, even when you're trying to return from that. But for an Atlanta Hawks team that has not lived up to expectations this season, they've been one of the disappointments of the NBA this season. I mean, look, behind the Lakers and the Knicks certainly is probably the two main disappointments this season, but the Hawks have been up there, or down there, I suppose, as well. So what does this mean for Atlanta? Do we see them maybe falling out of the play-in tournament at this point, or what could be at risk here, assuming John Collins misses a good amount of time, maybe this season? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of in a position where they're not really gonna lose any ground. They're the 10th spot right now. They have a 4.5 game cushion over the 11th place Wizards. Like 4.5 games, they have about 15 games left. That's kind of a lot. And even though John Collins is a great player and he's very pivotal to what the Hawks do, I don't see them being, oh, we don't have John Collins, we're going to lose 15 straight. Like,
Yeah.
they're probably going to still be competitive in most of these games. And at this point, with a 4.5 game cushion, if they just win, maybe like 5 or 6 of their last 15 games, like that should be enough. The Wizards are probably not going on some crazy like 12-3 tear.
Mm-hmm.
Without Bradley Beal and with what they have.
John Collins on the season, 16.2 points, which is actually the lowest point total for him since his rookie season. This is his 5th year in the NBA, 7.8 rebounds. And this guy can stretch the floor for you too, 36% from three, efficient shooter overall, 53% from the field. I mean, some of that is due to the attention that Trae Young gets. But when you look at this, like, John Collins is a legitimate piece. He's a guy who the Hawks considered trading at the trade deadline, but I think they made the right decision to hang on to him. To me, though, if he is out, and he is still dealing with a right ring finger issue as well, if he's not back, or if he's perhaps diminished come play-in time, this could lead to the Charlotte Hornets getting through at least into the next round of the play-in tournament. The Hawks can still be good without John Collins, but they're lacking quite a bit of punch. I think I might even favor the Hornets against them. I think I might favor the Hornets, period. But without John Collins, I think I have to favor the Hornets in the 9-10 matchup of the play-in tournament.
Yeah, I do think the Hawks stumbled onto something pretty great defensively, with putting Onyeka Okongwu at center. Like that has been kind of this thing that's unlocked a lot of their defensive potential as a team. DeAndre Hunter, obviously, great defender. Like they can still be competitive in these games, but without John Collins, yeah, the Hornets have a lot of firepower. They are an offensive heavy team. They don't play a ton of defense, and I sort of see without John Collins, the Hornets being able to kind of have their way with the Hawks. And so yeah, I do kind of favor the Hornets in that game. If John Collins can make it back for that game, it's much more interesting. It's probably more of a 50-50 toss-up. But it would be difficult, even in a one-game scenario, to see the Hawks having enough firepower without John Collins to get past the Hornets, which, even against a pretty solid defense in Atlanta, is going to get their points because it's just an offensive-friendly team.
And we don't know for sure that he's going to be out. Like, there's players right now that are already being listed as out for the season. We saw that with Doug McDermott yesterday. So this is a lot of times with the plantar fascia tear, it's a pain management thing that you're trying to deal with, which it's incredibly uncomfortable to play with. But still, we don't want to assume that he's going to be out. But I mean, we're getting up to it where we're so close to the end of the season that any little injury could very easily be season ending. If it's not, it could become season ending. I also want to note this: when we're looking at the bottom of the table in the Eastern Conference in terms of the play-in, the Hornets are only one game behind the Brooklyn Nets. The Hawks are only half a game behind the Hornets, so there is still room for movement there. And we are in kind of a weird spot where for the Nets, it might actually help them to fall to the 9 seed. Well, I guess they would actually have to fall to 10. Keith and I talked about this the other day in order to get home, or in order to be on the road in the first round of the play-in. Yeah, in order to get, they're trying to be on the road because they want Kyrie to be able to play. As it is right now, they would be on the road, but it would be against Toronto, and Kyrie can't play in Toronto because it's in Canada. The Nets are going to be in an interesting position. So we'll see how this all works out. If they are able to fall all the way to 10, what happens there? Do they even want to go through the lengths to do that? And then what role do the Hawks play in that? If you don't have John Collins, that makes it less likely that the Hawks would be able to jump up and leapfrog a team like the Nets or even the Hornets.
Yeah, I do think they're kind of stuck in that 10 spot. I don't see them surpassing anybody, but they have way too much of a cushion to fall. The Nets, if you're the Nets, you hope that Cleveland somehow falls to 7 and Toronto moves up to 6. That would kind of help you out a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to think about with this playoff picture in the East. It's very crowded. And the John Collins injury just makes it where the Hawks are saying, all right, like, we're 10th. This is kind of where we are. And yeah, they'd love to move up to 9 or 8, but the question is, will they have the firepower to do it in these last, in the last, I think, like 4 weeks, 3.5 weeks before the season ends?
Yeah, it's coming up quick. It's coming up, maybe not fast enough for the Lakers, but it's coming up pretty quick. Let's talk a little bit about Kemba Walker. Not a name that we've mentioned recently, but he is right now.
Not a name anyone's mentioned.
Yeah.
Not a name anyone has mentioned recently at all.
Absolutely. He's been kind of out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people, has been away from the team. Tom Thibodeau was asked, like, hey, what's Kemba up to? He doesn't know. He's been away from the team, not training with the team, so hasn't seen him, anything like that. Kemba Walker, and this is from Mark Berman in the New York Post, Kemba Walker is right now training in Charlotte. He's back home training in Charlotte, and that's led to some speculation that he might actually wind up back with the Hornets next season. Now, contractually, he's under contract for just over $9 million next year, but the Knicks are widely expected to try to trade him this summer rather than buy him out. Now, in a buyout situation, he can obviously go wherever he wants. If the Knicks are dead set on using that $9+ million expiring contract as a trade chip, then you could see Kemba Walker get sent somewhere, not really have a ton of say in terms of where he goes. Now, he could get shipped off somewhere and then get bought out. That's certainly possible. But still, interesting that we're already getting that kind of rumbling, connecting Kemba Walker, going back home to Charlotte. Is that something that could wind up happening? I don't know. Ron, what do you think about Kemba Walker potentially going back to Charlotte?
Yeah, I mean, I just talked about the Hornets being like an offense first. Mm-hmm. They don't have defense type of team. So it's a little weird to be connected to Kemba Walker because, like, what is Kemba Walker if not an offensive-friendly, not so defensive-minded type of player? Like, that's just another guy that they would have there. He would be a good mentor to LaMelo Ball, I think. He would fit in terms of not so much on the court, but he would fit what they do in terms of off the court. He could be a really good veteran leader for that team. But if you're the Hornets, paying a guy $9 million to be a veteran leader for a team that, LaMelo Ball is a great player. Yeah, veteran leadership could help him, but like spending $9 million on veteran leadership probably is more of a negative than anything. So, if he got bought out, I could absolutely see Charlotte saying, here's the minimum, please. Sure. But at $9 million, it's tough to say, to think Charlotte would not only want that money, but also have to send out, an $8 million player to make it happen.
Yeah, that's the question. You can queue up Skylar Gray and, I'm coming home and all that kind of stuff with a Kemba Walker return. But what do you, I mean, I guess it would be a straight swap with Mason Plumlee, but that's a guy that they just added. You're not going to want to swap him out just contractually looking at this. I mean, there's a few contracts they could stack up, but nothing really jumping out at me as an obvious trade chip. So most likely for Kemba to get back to the Hornets, you're talking about some sort of a buyout taking place and then him winding up there through that route, that method. But again, we'll have to see exactly how it all goes down. It's possible that they could have a little bit of cap room depending on what the Hornets wind up doing this offseason. But again, just something to kind of file away. This is the time of year stuff starts to come out, and then we won't hear about it for a little bit, and you just kind of got to remember, like, oh yeah, there was that connection, because it might pop up again come June, July. We said the same thing about the trade deadline. All the rumored trades that didn't go down, don't just like throw them away and delete them from your memory and assume that's not going to happen. Hold on to them, because sometimes that stuff just gets revisited in the summer. This could be one of those situations where maybe we start to hear more connections between Kemba and Charlotte once again come summertime.
Yeah, I absolutely could see this rumor coming back around, just like a lot of the things we heard at the deadline. That's how rumors go. It's a cycle, you know?
All right, Ron, let's talk about our Lakers.
Do we have to?
Yes, we do. So I asked over on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel, I had Scorpio Sky, who is the AEW TNT champion right now, right? And he's obviously just shredded and just an incredibly tough person. He's also great with Lakers now. I mean, he knows his stuff. He really knows his stuff. So it was a really fun interview. I would highly recommend that anybody go check it out. But I asked him, I said, what is more painful right now? Getting into the ring or watching a Lakers game? And he picked the Lakers game and said that despite getting powerbombed 3 times the night before we did that interview, he said, no, watching a Lakers game is more painful. So that's where we're at on the season, Ron. But one of the bright spots we've seen is Malik Monk. Malik Monk has been a find for the Lakers. They've got him on a veteran minimum contract, just $1.8 million this season. The downside of this, though, could be maybe a lose-lose contract, as our pal Eric Pincus termed it the other day on Twitter, because if Malik Monk plays well, which he has, then you probably lose him. You don't have any kind of team control there. And if he doesn't play well, then you're eating up a roster spot for a guy who's not playing well. That being said, the production the Lakers have gotten this season from a veteran minimum contract from Malik Monk has been impressive. And now there's word from Dave McMenamin of ESPN that Rob Pelinka wants to keep Malik Monk for next season. In fact, Rob Pelinka said, and I quote, "The partnership has been a win for both sides, both for the Lakers in terms of productivity he's had for us, and then I think on his side, showing people what he can do in big moments and in big games. He's a guy we would hopefully see as part of our future." So, where does this leave the Lakers? They like Malik Monk. They want to keep him. We keep running into this, though. How can they hang on to this guy? It feels like everything is set up for him to stay. Everything's gone so well between. It's the one of the few things that have gone well for the Lakers this season, and it's hard to envision a scenario where he's not on his way out the door.
Yeah, the Lakers are going to have to get pretty creative if they want to keep him around. Right now, as it stands, they can offer him the taxpayer mid-level exception. It's going to be around $6.3 million or something like that. Mm-hmm. They can offer him that, but he's probably going to get more than that, right? Like that's a little low on where he stands. So the Lakers can offer that and just hope and pray that he takes a discount, which at this point in his career, I don't know why he would. He already took a discount with the veteran minimum. So, I don't really see why he would. So they're going to have to get creative, because if they're going to get to his contract range, which is probably going to be closer to the full mid-level, which is going to be around $11 million, they're going to need to clear some cap room. So how do they do that? Well, they could trade Russell Westbrook to a team with cap space, which is the ideal situation. Trade him to a team with cap space, so you don't have to match salaries coming back. You then get $47 million off your books. And now you have a full mid-level exception to offer, because now you're not even close to the hard cap. Mm-hmm. You're not worried about it. The other option, probably the less interesting one, but the more likely one, is you waive and stretch the $47 million owed to Russell Westbrook. You maybe get him to take back somewhere between $5 and $10 million in a buyout, because that's what he'll go for in the market, 5-ish to $10 million. And then you stretch that. So you're looking at a cap hit of about, I don't know,
Best
let's
case
say
13 per year for 3 years.
13. Yeah, 13 per year for 3 years. It's not great. But if you have Russell Westbrook at 13 million, you do open up the full mid-level exception. You do open up the biannual exception, and you do allow yourself to be hard capped again. So like that, those things are ways that the Lakers can get to that salary cap number of 11 million, but it requires getting creative, and a little bit it requires either taking a really bad risk or getting really, really lucky. And a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder saying, yeah, we'll take him for, if you give us a first round pick, we'll take him for nothing. Like, you can just clear him from your books.
I can't see that. I think even the Thunder would send back some kind of salary, but still,
I think they would have to send Derek Favors,
Yeah.
I believe, to get under the salary cap to be able to do that deal.
Yeah. Which, I mean, maybe you can pull off something like that, but is Malik Monk worth it? The hoops that you're going to have to jump through in order to keep him, assuming, I mean, who knows? Maybe, I mean, look, there's a quote here from Malik Monk, said, "It's a beautiful experience, man. I love it." He says of playing with the Lakers. His brother said, "We're very loyal people. The Lakers were calling him nonstop once free agency opened. We don't forget about that. On the other side, it's a business, but I would love to see him in a Laker uniform." The McMenamin piece detailed that the Lakers were even almost in on him at the draft when they took Lonzo. They were looking at Malik Monk in the draft, and they've been high on him ever since and have been monitoring him ever since and been trying to figure out a way to get him ever since then. So clearly this is a guy they believe in. I can't imagine him taking that mini mid-level unless it would be some kind of a wink-wink thing where he takes it for 1 year, you get some early bird rights in there, and then you do something the next offseason. You do like a 1+1. That would be a big leap of faith on his part, though. So let's assume that you have to get to that full mid-level. Is it worth it, if you're the Lakers, to pay what you're going to have to pay to free up the room to keep Malik Monk?
I think it is worth it, and it's not specifically because of Malik Monk. But having a full mid-level just increases the type of player you can go get. Now, obviously, the free agency class this year is not fantastic by any stretch. But, let's say the Lakers were really interested in a guy like Mitchell Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say, Anthony Davis at the 5 doesn't work. His injuries make it so that he has to play the 4 during the regular season. Let's go out and get an athletic shot blocking center in Mitchell Robinson. Well, if you have the full mid-level, you now can offer, you can get him pretty easily. I think that's about what he's going to go for, like $10, $11 million a year. So I think it is worth it, not specifically for Malik Monk, just to have some flexibility. That's the big thing about having Russell Westbrook's $47 million on the books. You have no flexibility to do anything. You're just stuck. You just have to sit there while other teams do all the good moves, and you have to do all the bad moves. Like, you've trapped yourself. So if you're getting away from Russell Westbrook's money and it opens up that full mid-level and the biannual exception, now you have room to actually make good moves. Now you can say, oh, let's go give this guy $10 million, and then maybe we can give an undrafted rookie the rest of the mid-level exception so we can sign him to a 3-year deal instead of a 2-year deal, a mistake they made with Taylor Horton Tucker.
Correct.
You open yourself up to make moves that are actually smart as opposed to moves that are dumb. So that's kind of why I say just go and do it and figure it out. And if Malik Monk is that guy that gets the mid-level, great, fantastic. But it's not so much to jump through the hoops for him as it is to jump through the hoops for the idea of flexibility.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do. It's going to be interesting because they knew this going in. When they made that Westbrook trade, I mean, if it didn't go well, there's no way out. Right? I mean, the only way out is more pain. Right? It's not like I don't know. If you'd done, let's say you'd gone after, and this is water under the bridge, but if you'd gone after DeMar DeRozan or Buddy Hield or something like that, those contracts, well, maybe not easily movable. They're more movable than convincing somebody to pay Russell Westbrook $47 million this next season. Obviously, it didn't go the way the Lakers envisioned, but again, they knew going in that there was a chance, if this doesn't work, you're really stuck. And we talked about this for Lakers Nation at the time. You kind of bought into this team for the next 2 seasons when you did the Westbrook trade. Now it's pretty clear that this absolutely will not work. And in order to do something with Russell Westbrook, you're going to have to take more pain. It's just a question of which option are you going to pick? Are you going to attach all the first that you've got in 2027, 2029, whatever, and try to trade him somewhere? Are you going to buy him out and deal with looking at that dead money on your books for the next 3 seasons? Are you going to do that? We'll see what the Lakers ultimately do, but I think we'll find out a lot about what they think about Malik Monk based on how they handle the Russell Westbrook situation.
Yeah, and I don't want to devote too much Lakers talk to the front office show. I really don't, because I don't like it. But yeah, it's a huge offseason for them, and Malik Monk will be part of that calculation, I'm sure.
Okay, so last thing we need to get into for today, Joel Embiid talked a little bit about his nickname when he called himself the Process, revealed that it was in response to the dismissal of Sam Hinkie. Remember, there was some raised eyebrows when this happened with the 76ers. When they got rid of Sam Hinkie, there was reportedly maybe some pressure from the NBA that all this tanking was not a good look for the league. And so they moved on from Hinkie, and then we got to see some of Hinkie's plans come to fruition. And he didn't get to actually see it happen as part of the organization. And so Joel Embiid is saying that when Sam Hinkie was still with the organization, they tried to downplay all of the process stuff because of the connection to tanking and everything. And so once Hinkie left, Joel Embiid is like an homage to the guy who believed in him and drafted him, and even though he was hurt at the time, so he started calling himself the Process as kind of a nod to Sam Hinkie, which I thought was kind of cool and kind of interesting, that it wasn't until he left that he suddenly felt okay with doing that, and he was doing it to make sure that everybody remembered the guy who initially believed in him.
Yeah, I get where he's coming from. It'd be a little weird if a player like nicknamed himself after his GM currently.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be kind of weird. But I do think
James Morey-Ball Harden.
Yeah, like that'd be weird. But like I think there's something to be said. Philadelphia 76ers fans, the players, the fan base in general, everyone kind of looks at what's going on now and is like, Hinkie did this. This was Hinkie. Like, you don't get Joel Embiid without the process and tanking. You don't get Ben Simmons, which doesn't get you James Harden. Like, you're not able to make these moves if not for those 3 years where they were just like unwatchably terrible. Like, and that was what, Hinkie said when he started that process. He said, fans, if you stick with us for a couple of years here, it's gonna be worth it. And I think, look, even if they don't win a championship this year, which they could very well not win a championship. There's a lot of good teams. They're one of them. There's a lot of good teams. But even if they don't win a championship, like, if you told Sixers fans during the process 5-6 years ago, hey, you're going to have 2 of the NBA's 12 best players, and you're going to be one of maybe 5 legitimate championship contenders, they would take that every day, even if they didn't win.
Very true. Very true. I mean, if you look at the way things have played out, and here's the other part of this, there have been mistakes along the way that the 76ers have made. I mean, even just looking the draft. I mean, drafting like, Jahlil Okafor, that didn't work out. Markelle Fultz, that didn't work out. Like, imagine if those picks had hit. And I mean, part of that is just the kind of crapshoot nature of the draft. You just don't know for sure with any of these guys. But there's the possibility that they could have wound up with some hits with those guys that they missed on, and this process could have gone even faster. Now, of course, you could have not found anybody. I mean, look, the Lakers, right, drafted, I mean, we always go back to this, but drafted the 2nd overall pick for 3 seasons and never got that 1A guy as good as, Brandon Ingram, D'Angelo Russell, Lonzo, as good as these guys are, they're not that 1A superstar. The Sixers were able to find that guy in Joel Embiid. So there is that unknown as well. Even if a guy is good, is he really that guy that's going to take you to that next level? But still, the concept is sound. This idea that the NBA, because they reward poor play, it's worth going this route. Now, the NBA has changed the lottery odds, and we'll see if that has been enough of a deterrent. Plus, with the introduction of the play-in tournament as well, convincing teams to stay involved in seasons a little bit longer. The NBA has taken steps to try to get rid of this tanking, but it just is interesting that Joel Embiid's nickname will forever be an ode to this tanking strategy and what frankly, it probably worked for the 76ers. I think if we look at it objectively, it was successful.
Yeah, the only thing it doesn't reward is being mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
It rewards being great and it rewards being really bad. And so NBA teams are taking that as well. Like if we're not going to be, and you can see it this year, the teams that are not good, and there are a few, teams that tried to be good but failed.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, you're either a good team or you are really, really bad. Houston, Orlando, Indiana now, like Portland. Yeah, like there's that's basically what the league has become. And I don't know if it's necessarily something that it probably needs to change a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the Sixers, like if you are really bad for a couple of years, you will be really good for a lot of years if you do a couple right things, like drafted Joel Embiid, which Joel Embiid was a risk at the time. That's also part of why Joel Embiid has this thing for Sam Hinkie, because Hinkie took the risk on him. It was not considered a sure thing drafting Joel Embiid at the number 3 overall pick when they did. Like he was a serious injury prone guy. There were major concerns about his foot. Like that, it was a big, big risk drafting him at the 3rd overall pick, and it paid off. And so I think Joel Embiid is saying like, Hinkie got us to this point by taking the risk on me, taking the risk on Ben Simmons, and now here we are. We have this great team, and it's because of the work he did, and we should remember that.
Which is fair. Which is fair. I always think of the 76ers fans that were holding up those signs saying Hinkie died for this.
Hinkie did.
He was the architect, but he wasn't able to see it all the way through because of the pressure. I mean, look, the NBA, it's not a great look when you've got teams that are trying to lose, that are
and openly telling you.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not great for the league as a whole, but it worked. Okay, well, the NBA world never ceases to amaze us. Just a little peek behind the curtain. Right when we stopped recording this episode, boom, we get hit by Shams Charania going on to Twitter and giving us an update on Stephen Curry. And then we got hit by Deshaun Watson trade news in the NFL too. But Steph Curry, let's get into that. We'll actually finish off the show with that one. According to Shams Charania, Steph Curry sounds like the Warriors have dodged a bullet here. According to Shams, Curry has been diagnosed with a sprained ligament in his left foot, will sideline him indefinitely, okay, but the x-rays are negative. No fracture, no major damage. He gets reevaluated in 2 weeks. That doesn't mean he's back in 2 weeks. Reevaluate and return are not the same. We always caution that. But still, this sounds like it's not going to be a season-ending injury for Steph Curry. He should get back out there on the floor. Maybe the Warriors wind up sitting in that 3 seed because they don't have him for a couple of weeks. They don't jump up to 2 and pass the Grizzlies or whatever. That may be the case. But the important thing, Steph Curry dodged a bullet here with that ankle injury. Keith and I talked about it yesterday on the show. Marcus Smart falling into his leg. If you want more details on that, check out yesterday's show. But Ron, this is big for not just the Warriors, but for the NBA playoffs as well.
Yeah, I think, obviously Steph Curry is a guy with a history of ankle injuries. And so anytime there's sort of like an ankle thing around him, anything with his below his calf, you're just like a little bit more worried because it's Steph Curry. But to see that this looks to be minor, reevaluated in 2 weeks, probably means if everything goes well, 3 to 4 weeks, which should take you to right about the playoffs. So if the Warriors can get Steph Curry back for the start of the playoffs, that's fantastic, right? That's exactly what you want. They'll probably be the 3 seed and they'll be fine.
I think the ideal situation for the Warriors is you would get him back with maybe 3 games left in the season just to let him get out on the floor, test his ankle out a little bit, that sort of thing, and then go from there. That's the ideal. Now, if you don't get him back to the playoffs, you don't get him back to the playoffs. But we'll see how his recovery goes. But again, the fact that they're reevaluating in 2 weeks and not, say, 4 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever, look, we see it with Anthony Davis. It can be worse in terms of just getting to a reevaluation date. So that's a good sign. A 2-week reevaluation date is a good sign. And again, this looks like a bullet dodged for the Golden State Warriors. So wanted to make sure that we got in that news. So that's why we decided to tack this on here. Shams hit it like literally right after we stopped recording the episode. Shams surprised us with that. So wanted to pop back in and make sure we got that info out as well.
Yeah, I also for the Warriors, if they're the 3 seed, we are shaping up for what could be a very, very interesting first round matchup. If the Warriors are fully healthy, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, James Wiseman comes back, they could be playing the Nuggets, who we know could be getting Jamal Murray back, Michael Porter Jr. back. If that is a fully healthy series, that is going to be 7 fantastic games of basketball. So for the basketball world in general, let's hope everyone gets healthy and that the Warriors stick at 3, because man, what an incredible series that would be if that came around.
Absolutely. That would be 100% a blast. All right, everybody. With that, we will actually head off for the weekend. Appreciate all of you joining us. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the sports world right now. You've got Major League Baseball playoffs. You've got free agency. You've got NFL free agency. Again, we just found out Deshaun Watson is shocking everyone, changed his mind apparently, and is now
going to the Browns.
Going to the Browns. Pulled a J.D. McKissick, changed his mind, and decided he's going to go to the Browns. We're waiting to see the terms of the deal.
Pulled like 4 different people this offseason.
Right.
Randy Gregory backed out of his deal with the Cowboys, went to the Broncos. NFL free agency has gone off the rails. Everyone is no one can make up their mind. And it feels a lot like NBA free agency, where it's just like absolute chaos from the minute it starts. And then you're going to look at the league in 2 weeks and be like, whoa, all these people change teams? This is ridiculous.
How is this guy there? Yep. It's pro wrestling style. It's the year of the swerve, but it's a lot of fun. Definitely enjoying what we're seeing there. But again, appreciate everybody joining us, given that so much else is going on right now, including March Madness, of course, as well. But appreciate you guys. Make sure that you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office Show. Don't forget to turn on those notifications as well. Follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And we definitely appreciate if you left us that 5-star review. Till next time, everybody, have a great weekend. See ya and stay safe.